This area needs to be spotless before the meeting starts. Can you handle that?
I'll get it done, but it would help if I had more time.
Laughter exploded through the glass-walled boardroom like champagne corks. Victoria Renshaw leaned back in her leather chair, her diamond watch catching the morning light. The city stretched beneath her, hers to command, hers to own. Another record-breaking quarter, another victory. "Gentlemen," she declared, "this is what domination looks like." The board members applauded, eager to please her. But as the sound faded, Victoria's sharp eyes caught something in the corner of the room. A janitor, quietly sweeping the marble floor. His uniform was faded, his movements slow but precise. He didn't seem to notice the luxury around him. Victoria smirked. "Well, look who's here," she said loudly. "Samuel, right?" The man paused, broom in hand. "Yes, ma'am," her tone turned playful, edged with arrogance. "Tell me, Sam," she teased. "You've been mopping these floors for years. Got any financial advice for your CEO?" The boardroom burst into laughter. Some covered their mouths. Others chuckled openly. To them, it was harmless fun, just another joke in the Queen's court. But Samuel didn't laugh. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes, dark, calm, steady, met hers without fear. "Yes, ma'am," he said softly. "The higher a tree grows, the deeper its roots must go. Or it'll fall with the first storm." Silence spread like frost. Victoria's smile faltered. The laughter stopped, replaced by awkward coughs and shifting chairs. Samuel didn't flinch. He just went back to sweeping, the quiet sound of the broom scratching against marble, filling the air. Victoria forced a chuckle. "Well, that's poetic," she muttered. But something in his tone unsettled her. It wasn't defiance, it was truth, wrapped in humility. When the meeting ended, she found herself watching him again. The way he moved, the quiet dignity, the contrast between her diamond heels and his worn shoes felt suddenly too loud. Hours later, back in her penthouse, the city glittered outside her floor-to-ceiling windows. She poured herself a drink, trying to shake the unease. "Just a janitor," she whispered. But his words replayed in her mind, over and over. "The higher a tree grows." She sighed, set down the glass, and opened her laptop. Curiosity had become an itch she couldn't ignore. She typed his name, Samuel Grant. A few seconds later, search results appeared, and Victoria froze. A headline glared back at her. "Former financial prodigy loses everything after scandal." Her breath caught. She clicked another link. Ex-investment CEO declares bankruptcy after mysterious corporate betrayal. The photo beside the headline. Same calm eyes, same face, younger, sharper. Victoria's pulse quickened. She whispered to herself, "Who? Are you Samuel?" Outside, thunder rumbled over the skyline. Inside, Victoria Renshaw, queen of the glass tower, felt the first tremor of doubt. And as the storm began to build, she didn't realize yet. The roots of her empire had already started to shake. The city was still half asleep when Victoria's black car rolled to a stop in front of Renshaw Tower. Fog clung to the streets, wrapping the glass building in a pale, ghostly haze. Inside the car, Victoria sat motionless, hands tight on the steering wheel. She wasn't early for work, she was early for him. Through the windshield, she saw Samuel mopping the lobby floor. Same steady rhythm, same quiet focus. It didn't make sense. The man she'd mocked yesterday wasn't who she thought he was. The headlines she'd read, "Financial prodigy ruined by betrayal," still echoed in her head. A janitor who once ran a financial firm. A man destroyed, now sweeping floors in the empire built on his ashes. She stepped out of the car. Her heels clicked against the marble as she entered the lobby. The air smelled faintly of lemon polish and morning rain. Samuel looked up, surprised to see her so early. "Morning, ma'am," he said, polite but distant. Victoria hesitated. Her pride made her voice come out sharper than intended. "I did some research about you." He stopped mopping. "That's so? I found articles," she continued. "You owned a firm years ago. Grant & Associates." He gave a small nod, eyes lowered. "A lifetime ago," she pressed on, curiosity edging into guilt. "They said you were betrayed." "By your own partners?" A faint smile tugged at his lips, painful, knowing. "That's one way to put it." The silence stretched. Victoria shifted uncomfortably. "I wanted to apologize for yesterday. The joke was, Uncalled for? Samuel looked at her then. Takes courage to admit that, ma'am. Her voice softened. But why are you here? Why? Clean floors when you once ran an empire? He rested both hands on the mop handle and met her gaze. Because every floor shines again, if you keep polishing. For a moment, Victoria couldn't speak. The simplicity of it pierced deeper than any speech. His words carried the weight of someone who had lost everything and learned peace instead of bitterness. She wanted to ask more, how he found the strength, what kept him going, but he turned away quietly, wringing out the mop. Some things don't need fixing, ma'am, he said over his shoulder. Just a little care. And then he walked off, leaving her standing alone in the vast lobby. All day his words haunted her. The markets opened in chaos, investors bombarding her with questions. During a heated call that afternoon, one impatient shareholder shouted, "We need aggressive moves, Victoria!" Her voice cut through the noise before she could think. No, every floor shines again, if you keep polishing. The boardroom went still. Then from across the table, one man shifted uneasily. Richard Cole, her father's old associate. His pen froze mid-air. He looked up sharply. "Where did you hear that?" Victoria frowned. "It's just something someone said." "Why?" Richard's face paled. He muttered something about a meeting and left the room abruptly. As the door clicked shut behind him, Victoria's pulse quickened. The name Samuel Grant had rattled him. She didn't know why. But she was about to find out. Victoria stormed into her office, the echo of Richard Cole's reaction still burning in her mind. She slammed her purse onto the desk and barked at her assistant. "Get me every file we have on Grant and Associates, 20 years back, full history." Her assistant hesitated. "That's before you took over, ma'am. Back when your father was—" "I know," Victoria snapped. "Just find it." Minutes later, she sat before a pile of old folders, dusted and yellowing, the company logo from another era stamped across them. As she flipped through page after page, the laughter of yesterday felt like a distant memory, numbers, contracts, memos, and then a name that stopped her cold. Renshaw. Capital. Her father's signature gleamed at the bottom of a joint venture deal, the same deal that had triggered Samuel Grant's downfall. She pulled up digital archives, fingers trembling. The deeper she dug, the uglier the story became. Falsified reports, insider accusations, and a merger that shifted blame onto Grant's firm. Her father's partners had escaped untouched. Grant had taken the fall. A soft memory flashed, her father laughing over dinner, telling her, "Business is war, sweetheart." Some men are casualties. Now she saw the truth. Those casualties had names, faces, lives. Victoria pushed back from the desk, chest tight. Her father's empire, her empire, was built partly from the ashes of Samuel's. The irony cut deep. Every floor Samuel cleaned was laid with the wealth stolen from him. That afternoon, she found herself lingering near the lobby again. Samuel was polishing the railing, humming softly. She approached, hesitating. "Mr. Grant," she said quietly. He looked up, calm as always. "Just Samuel, ma'am." She studied him, guilt swelling in her chest. "You knew my father, didn't you?" He paused for a moment, then nodded slowly. "We crossed paths, once." "I found out what happened," she whispered. "The deal, the lies. My family, my company was part of it." Samuel's expression didn't change. "It was a long time ago." "But it ruined you," she said, voice trembling. He smiled faintly. "No, ma'am. It freed me. Losing everything teaches you what really matters." Victoria blinked, struggling to understand such calm. "How can you forgive something like that?" He leaned on his mop. "Because bitterness is just another kind of prison." For the first time in years, she felt small, not in wealth, but in spirit. She tried to smile, tried to say something kind, but words failed her. After that day, she changed. She greeted Samuel each morning, asked if he'd eaten. Once she even brought him coffee. It wasn't pity, it was respect, though she didn't fully understand why. Samuel accepted her kindness with a quiet nod. Never more. He kept his distance, sweeping the same floors that now seemed sacred to her. A reminder of guilt and grace woven together. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, Her phone exploded with alerts before sunrise. Her assistant's voice shook on the line. "Ma'am, you need to see this. It's everywhere. Renshaw Industries. There's been a leak." Victoria turned on the news. Headlines screamed across the screen. Insider fraud allegations. Rock Renshaw Industries. CEO Victoria Renshaw under fire. The anchor's voice cut through her panic. History seems to be repeating itself. Victoria froze. The storm that once buried Samuel Grant was now coming for her. The roar of chaos thundered through Renshaw Tower. Phones rang without pause, reporters shouted across the lobby, and the giant trading screens bled red with numbers that kept falling, falling, falling. The empire Victoria Renshaw had built, her pride, her name, her legacy, was collapsing in real time. "Ma'am, we have to issue a statement. Now!" Her PR chief shouted. Victoria's pulse pounded. "A statement won't stop a landslide," she snapped, voice trembling. Across the trading floor, cameras flashed. Reporters fought to get a glimpse of the Queen under siege. "Is it true, Ms. Renshaw? Were you involved in insider trading? Was your father's firm covering illegal deals?" She didn't answer. Her mind was a blur of noise, headlines, and betrayal. Her CFO burst in, face pale. "I'm sorry, Victoria. I can't stay. My lawyer advised me to resign immediately." He left without looking back. One by one, the others followed. Directors, advisors, friends. They all scattered, like rats leaving a sinking ship. Hours later, the once mighty trading floor fell silent. Victoria walked through it alone, the echo of her heels haunting in the emptiness. The glass walls that once shimmered with power now reflected only her fear. Downstairs, the lobby lights flickered. And there he was, Samuel, moving his mop across the marble, calm as if the world wasn't crumbling above him. She stood watching him for a long moment. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "Samuel," he looked up, his expression gentle. "Ma'am, I don't know what to do," she said, voice cracking. "Everyone's gone. I don't know who to trust." He leaned on his mop, studying her. "Then start by trusting yourself. And the truth." Victoria swallowed hard. "The truth might destroy me." Samuel set the mop aside and walked toward a nearby bench. "Only lies destroy, ma'am. Truth rebuilds." For the first time she sat beside him, not as a CEO, not as a superior, but as a woman defeated. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. Samuel spoke quietly, like someone who'd walked this road before. "You can't fight the tide with greed or pride, but you can ride it if you stop pretending to control the ocean." He pulled out a notepad from his pocket, the paper soft and creased. "Here's what you do," he said, sketching quickly. "Be transparent. Admit what you know. Cut ties with the ones hiding secrets. Build trust with the people, not the shareholders." Victoria watched in awe. Every word felt simple, yet brilliant. "But the board," she started. He shook his head. "Forget the board. You answer to your conscience first." For the first time all week, she felt air return to her lungs. His calm steadied her trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Samuel smiled faintly. "Just polish the floor, ma'am. It'll shine again." As he walked away, Victoria looked at the notepad, clutching it like a lifeline. Maybe this was how redemption began, not with power, but with truth. That night, back in her penthouse, she started following Samuel's plan, releasing honest statements, canceling suspicious accounts, rebuilding from transparency. For the first time, she felt hope. But just as she began to breathe again, her phone rang. It was her lawyer, his voice sharp, urgent. "Victoria, we have a problem. Someone inside your company leaked confidential documents to the authorities." Her heart stopped. "What documents?" A pause. Then his voice dropped. "Errands that can send you to prison." The phone slipped from her hand. The screen went dark, and outside her window, the city lights flickered, like warning beacons before another storm. The city slept under a cold drizzle, but Victoria Renshaw's car tore through the streets like a storm on wheels. Her phone buzzed non-stop, alerts, headlines, betrayal. By the time she reached Renshaw Tower, her pulse was hammering louder than the rain. The lobby was empty. The lights dim. Only the faint hum of the elevators broke the silence. She stepped in, pressed top floor, and watched the numbers climb, each floor dragging her closer to the truth she dreaded. When the doors slid open, she found him waiting, Richard Hale, her most trusted board member, mentor, friend. the man who had helped her build this empire. He stood by the window, city lights painting his face in gold and shadow. A glass of scotch swirled lazily in his hand. "You shouldn't have come, Victoria," he said without turning. Her voice shook. "You leaked the files?" He smiled, a slow, cold curve. "Of course I did." She took a step forward. "Why?" "Because you forgot what this company is built on," he said. "Power, control, fear. You started talking about honesty, transparency, quoting that janitor like he's a prophet." He turned now, his eyes sharp as glass. "Do you even know who he is?" Her jaw tightened. "I know enough," he chuckled darkly. "Then you know I was there when he fell. Samuel Lewis, brilliant man, idealistic fool. Your father's people warned him to play along. He didn't, so we buried him." Victoria's breath caught. "We? You destroyed him?" Richard shrugged. "Business, Victoria. He tried to expose corruption, your father's corruption, and paid the price. His firm died so Renshaw could rise." Her mind reeled. "And now you're doing it again, to me." He took a sip. "History repeats. You should have learned from him." For a moment she just stood there, drenched not in rain, but realization. Everything Samuel had endured was happening to her now. "You're finished," Richard said quietly, stepping closer. "The board voted an hour ago. You're out. I called security to escort you off the premises." Ironic, isn't it? "Fired from your own empire." Victoria's voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "You can't take everything from me." He smirked. "Watch me." 2 guards entered, expressionless. They didn't need to say a word. She lifted her chin, swallowed the sting, and walked past them. The boardroom doors closed behind her with a soft click, the sound of exile. In the elevator down, her reflection stared back at her. Flawless hair ruined by rain, mascara smudged, eyes hollow. The once invincible CEO now looked like a ghost of her own ambition. The lobby was empty again. Her heels clicked against the marble, echoing louder than her heartbeats. She pushed through the revolving doors, straight into the downpour. And there he was. Samuel stood at the edge of the steps, holding an umbrella, the rain dripping off his sleeves. He looked at her the way a father might look at a child who's finally learned pain. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then he stepped forward, extending the umbrella over her head. "When they throw you out of your castle," he said softly, "you finally see the sky." The warmth in his voice cracked something inside her. Her breath shuddered. "They took everything," he shook his head. "No, Victoria. They took what could be taken. The rest, you still have to find." For the first time in her life, she had no retort, no mask, no armor. Only silence. Samuel turned, looking toward the rain-dark horizon. "Tomorrow," he said, "come to the park at dawn. I'll show you how to rebuild what they can't take." She nodded slowly. The storm raged around them, but beneath that small umbrella, a strange calm settled. The castle had fallen, but perhaps the rebuilding had just begun. The park was still wet with dawn when Victoria arrived. Mist curled above the grass, and the air smelled of rain and earth. For once, there were no flashing cameras, no polished shoes, no glass towers, only silence, in the sound of a broom sweeping the path ahead. Samuel stood near the benches, his posture straight, his face calm in the early light. The rising sun touched his grey hair with gold, and for the first time, Victoria didn't see a janitor. She saw a man who had already climbed and fallen from the very mountain. She was now learning to scale. "I didn't think you'd come," he said with a faint smile. "I didn't think I had anywhere else to go," she replied. They sat on a bench, dew dampening the edge of her coat. For a moment, they just watched the city wake, joggers, birds, the distant hum of traffic. Then Samuel began to speak. "If you want to rebuild," he said, "start with what they can't buy, trust." She frowned softly. "Trust doesn't pay the bills." "No," he said, "but it pays the debt your soul owes to the truth." From that morning on, they met every few days. Samuel taught her what no business school had: humility in leadership, patience in failure, and the quiet power of doing right when no one is watching. Together, they sketched out a plan on park napkins and old notebooks, a foundation that would help the workers she once laid off without a second thought. "You don't rebuild an empire," Samuel said one morning. You rebuild people, and they'll build everything else. When Victoria made the foundation public, the reaction was brutal. News anchors called it a sympathy stunt. Commenters mocked her, saying she'd gone from boardroom queen to charity beggar. But she didn't stop. She visited families, spoke to ex-employees, apologized, not as a CEO but as a person. Slowly, the tone changed. Former workers began to share stories online, not of cruelty, but of her change. The same media that once ridiculed her began calling it the Renshaw redemption. Investors took notice. Quietly, calls began returning. Her inbox filled again, not with threats, but opportunities. One afternoon, standing outside the newly opened foundation office, she turned to Samuel. "You belong here," she said. "With me, as an executive. You've earned that and more." Samuel smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "I don't need a title to make change, Victoria." She shook her head. "You deserve recognition. I had that once," he said softly. "It nearly destroyed me. Now, I'd rather build quietly." His words humbled her more than any applause ever could. Under his mentorship, she began to find rhythm again, the kind that came from meaning, not money. She led fewer meetings and took more walks. She spoke less and listened more. The empire she was building now had no marble floors, but it had heart. Weeks passed. The foundation grew faster than she expected. Donations poured in. And then one morning, her assistant burst into her office, eyes wide. "There's an investor," she said breathlessly. "He wants to save Renshaw Industries." Victoria's heart skipped. "What's the catch?" The assistant hesitated. "He has only one condition. Samuel Lewis must be the one to sign the deal personally." Victoria froze. "Samuel?" Outside, the city buzzed with new life. Inside, her pulse echoed like thunder. Why him? What did they want from a man who once lost everything and had just begun to rise again? The conference room buzzed with anticipation. Reporters, investors, cameras flashing against the glass walls of Renshaw Tower. For the first time in months, Victoria stood tall, though her palms trembled slightly against the polished table. The future of her company, her family name, everything, hung on this single meeting. Then the doors opened. Samuel entered. Gone was the grey janitor's uniform. He wore a crisp navy suit, perfectly tailored, his shoulders squared with quiet dignity. The murmurs in the room stilled. Some executives blinked, not recognizing him at first. Others, those who had mocked him, looked away, shame burning their faces. Victoria couldn't help but smile through the lump in her throat. For a moment it felt like time folded, the past and present merging. The man sweeping her floors weeks ago now commanded the room like a legend returning from exile. The lead investor rose from his seat, eyes glinting with emotion. "Mr. Lewis," he said, extending a hand. "I can't believe it's really you!" Samuel shook it firmly. "It's been a long time, David." David smiled, voice cracking. "You probably don't remember me. 20 years ago, I was an intern at your firm. The kid who couldn't balance a ledger," Samuel chuckled. "And now you run one of the biggest equity groups in New York, I remember." The room held its breath. David turned to the board. "I built my career on the principles this man taught me: honesty, patience, integrity. When I heard he was here, still standing, still teaching, I knew where my investment belonged. But this deal only happens if he signs it." All eyes shifted to Samuel. He looked at Victoria, who stood motionless, eyes glistening, heart pounding. He picked up the pen, paused, and said softly, "I'll sign, but on one condition." David nodded. "Name it." Samuel's gaze swept the table, the powerful faces that once laughed at him now waiting in silence. If Renshaw Industries is to rise again, it must rise clean. Victoria will create a fund for ethical startups. Young innovators who believe profit should never come before people. Victoria's breath caught. "Samuel, you'd trust me with that?" He smiled gently. "You've already proven I can." Without hesitation, David agreed. Cameras clicked. The signatures were inked. Applause rippled through the room like thunder after a storm. Renshaw Industries, reborn not in power, but in principle. When the meeting ended, Samuel didn't linger for congratulations. He walked the familiar hallways slowly, each step echoing with memories of loss, betrayal, and quiet forgiveness. At the elevator, He picked up his old mop, leaning it against his shoulder like a soldier resting his sword. Victoria followed him to the lobby, the same place where he once mopped her reflection off the marble floor. She stopped him at the door, her voice trembling. "You could stay. Be part of this again." He turned, eyes kind, smile soft. "My part's done, Victoria. The rest is yours now," she swallowed hard. "Then at least let me say thank you for teaching me what money can't buy." Samuel nodded once, eyes glimmering in the sunlight breaking through the glass tower. "Just remember, every floor shines again, if you keep polishing." And with that he walked out into the bright morning. Mop in hand, head high, Victoria stood there, watching him disappear into the city crowd, a faint smile breaking through her tears. The empire had fallen. Then it had risen, not from greed, but from grace. True wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by what you give, forgive, and rebuild. If this story moved you, share it. Someone out there might need its lesson today.